How many people lost their freedom because one man lied? At least 12 were convicted on evidence. Fred Zain manufactured, dozens more had cases flagged as unreliable. This is the trace of a fraud that moved from lab bench to courtroom and reshaped lives. Fred Zain presented himself as a serologist, an expert in blood and semen analysis, working for the West Virginia State Police Crime Laboratory from 1977 to 1989. He was the state's golden witness. Chambers of prosecutors called him repeatedly. Judges accepted him without challenge. Juries heard his testimony and believed it. His courtroom record was near flawless. That reputation carried weight. It became a weapon. The lie was methodical. Zain reported tests he never ran. He altered results to implicate suspects. He declared biological matches that science could not support. Sometimes when samples were degraded beyond reliable analysis. Sometimes evidence that excluded a defendant was reported as excluding everyone but that defendant. He portrayed uncertainty as certainty. He created narratives of guilt to fit prosecutions. The unraveling began with a case that should have ended a man's life behind bars. In 1987, Glen Dale Woodall was convicted of kidnapping and sexual assault in West Virginia, largely on the basis of Zain's testimony about blood type testing. Years later, DNA testing exonerated Woodall. In 1992, the DNA did more than free a man. It illuminated a pattern. It proved that testimony and the underlying laboratory records could be false. The state responded. In 1993, the West Virginia Supreme Court ordered a sweeping review of every case Zain had touched. The American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors was asked to examine his work. Their conclusion was stark and damning. Every piece of testimony given by Zain was potentially unreliable. The review identified at least 36 cases with signs of fabrication or manipulation. At least 12 convictions were deemed wrongful. Men who had pleaded guilty to avoid harsher punishments. Men who had served decades. Men whose lives were remade by a single expert's assertions. They were cataloged as victims of a system that failed them. Those victims are not abstractions. Glen Dale Woodall's freedom was stolen and then restored. Others served years before settlements and exonerations followed. Some convictions were vacated. Some men received civil settlements worth millions from the state of West Virginia. Those payments acknowledged harm but could not return, years lost to prison, marriages strained to breaking, reputations stripped away. When Zain left West Virginia in 1989, he did not stop working. He went to Bexar County, Texas, where he became chief of physical evidence at the medical examiner's office. The pattern followed him. Texas launched its own review. New questions arose. New cases were potentially tainted. The geography changed, but the core problem did not. An expert accustomed to deference could shape facts to fit prosecutions, and institutional safeguards were either absent. Accountability stalled. Zain faced indictments in West Virginia in 1994, and in Texas, legal battles ensued over jurisdiction and the admissibility of evidence. He never stood convicted for altering results. He died of cancer in 2002. He never spent a single day in prison for the actions that sent other people to jail. The criminal process that might have delivered a verdict against him was fragmented, slow, and ultimately incomplete. What made this possible was not only the individual deception. It was an institutional culture that rewarded conviction over verification. Supervisors praised Zain's courtroom success. Prosecutors relied on his testimony as if it were unimpeachable science. Defense attorneys who raised concerns were routinely dismissed or ignored. The laboratory lacked meaningful quality control. No independent checks that might have caught fabrication. No routine reanalysis. Inadequate documentation protocols. The system privileged expedience and certainty, and one man supplied both. The forensic betrayal had consequences beyond statistics. It eroded public confidence in forensic evidence, exposed vulnerability in the criminal justice chain, and reshaped forensic oversight nationwide. The West Virginia review sent ripples. Laboratories introduced stricter quality controls. Professional societies updated standards. Courts became more skeptical of single expert testimony. But reforms arrived after lives had been broken. Fred Zain fabricated evidence for at least 12 years. Prosecutors built cases and careers on his testimony. At least 12 people went to prison. Many more lived under the shadow of his lab reports. West Virginia paid millions in civil settlements. Zain died free, never convicted. Subscribe to Case Files TV because justice is only as reliable as the people who handle the evidence.